All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of Tuesday Night Live on the 10 Horse Money YouTube channel. Got a great show lined up for you. It's one of them deals where there's new trends that come out in fishing and they pique your curiosity, but it's good to have somebody on there that's a professional that's out there tinkering around playing with these new baits and stuff to get on here and kind of break some of the technique down because there's a learning curve on anything. And the best way to learn something is to have somebody that's had some experience using that technique. So we got Matt Becker on here tonight. Matt, welcome to the show, man. Glad you're going to spend some time with us this evening.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's been a little while. I know I was on with you guys once before for sure. So yeah, definitely excited to talk a little bassin with you guys.
Yeah. I was trying to remember how long ago that was. It's been at least a year ago, I think. But yeah, good to catch up. So you're on the road, huh? Just doing a little moving some product or selling a boat, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's just it's always a busy time of year. It's our so-called off season, but we don't really get much off time. There's always something to be doing, and this week's a busy week. I got a few errands to run and pick some stuff up for the truck, getting a rod coffin picked up for the truck, so I'm going to be able to store all my rods on the top of the truck. And then thankfully I sold my 2025 boat to a man from northeast Texas. So I'm going to be dropping that off to him here later this week while I'm out this way. And, I figured I was heading to this part of the country. So I'll do a little pre fishing for, the Bass Pro Tour schedule in 2026. So kind of knock out a few things here this week. And thankfully, the weather kind of warmed up and cooperating here this week. It's pretty nice, but I've been paying attention. And the last few days leading up to this have been a little chilly.
Oh yeah, it was ridiculous on Sunday. I think the warmest I saw was 10 degrees, and
Whew.
I don't get out when I'm kind of like one of them guys that when it's flirting with like 32 ish, that's when I kind of start thinking about getting out there. But it's 10 degrees now. But man, people get out there. There's
I
several
know.
guys I know on that have posts on Facebook that were out there the last couple of days and they were crushing them. But
Yeah,
not me.
yeah. I'm with you. If it's below freezing and my guides are gonna freeze, that's about where I start to draw the line. Like that becomes a problem, and
It's
it's just not
dangerous too.
enjoyable. It's definitely dangerous. Yeah, I mean, anytime you're fishing in the cold, in the winter, like it's much more dangerous than obviously in the summer because if you were to happen to slip and end up in the lake somehow, getting back to the truck is going to become a priority pretty quick.
Well, me and a buddy were talking about it today. We're big waterfowl hunters around here too, and this weekend it was cold. I mean, busting ice cold, and we hunt a lot of public ground. And there was a couple guys at the draw this weekend that had their 6-7 year old whatever kid with them, and we had that discussion. It's like, man, I don't know if I'd want to bring them out there because if something happens, you're an hour from getting them out. If you had a bust ice getting in, busting ice getting out, like, man, I just don't. To each your own, but like, that's a
Yeah.
good way to ruin a kid from wanting to be in the outdoors. I can tell you that. So, and I don't want to go to the lake when it's 10. So,
No, I mean the hypothermia is nothing to mess around with. Like I honestly like I don't mind the cold water. Like I have taken ice baths myself. I've taken cold showers. Like I've done that. Like in short amount of time, that's not a problem. But it like the actual falling into the lake or whatever that's not going to be the issue. The issue is going to be once you get out and getting back to the truck to get dried off and warmed up. That's when you're going to have a problem. So
yeah, say you're at best, you get in the water and you're out of the water, you recover, you have the adrenaline bump, and then in the fall, like you're probably 30 minutes before you're getting in the truck.
yeah, and getting warmed up and that run across the lake's going to be pretty cold. That's going to be the problem.
Yep.
So, anytime I go fishing in the winter, I always try and make it a priority to keep a towel in the boat and an extra set of clothes if you
Mm-hmm.
can, just for the safety side of it. Cause like that's something that you can't mess around with.
I think the other side of things, even though with all modern technology and we all are aware of where everybody's at, letting everybody know you got where you're at, where you're going to be at, how long you plan on being there when you coming back, and stick into your plan.
Yeah.
Because
What boat
things
ramp
can
you're
happen in
launching
a
out of,
heartbeat.
that's key. Definitely.
For sure. You can't mess around with the cold, but it comes every year. So you just find your ways to get through it, you know?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're in that part of the country that it does come every year.
Yep. It's going to get cold.
So do you have your new boat lined up, on the way, set up, all that? How long of a turnaround is it from one to the other?
Well, so this year there was a little bit of an overlap. So I had two boats for a little while. I guess I still currently have two boats. But yeah, I have my new boat rigged, wrapped. It's completely ready to go. It's tournament ready right now. So I feel like I'm probably ahead of schedule on that, and with most of my competitors, I would say I feel like I'm way ahead of schedule. So I feel good about that. I fished out of it a few days, and I would have fished out of it more, but I brought the old boat here this week to pass on to its new owner. So that'll be kind of moving on, check that box and turn the page on that boat, and then it'll just be fishing out of the 26 boat here, and I'll probably try and get another, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 hours on that boat before the first tournament, just to, try and make sure all the bugs are worked out of it and everything, just it's something every year, you rig a new boat, and there's always something that, something that comes up that you want to change, tweak this, add this little thing. So the more time I can spend in it before the tournament season starts and figure out those little things, the better off I am. So that's
Now, do you
kind of on
keep
the schedule here.
your graphs from the year prior and just throw them on the new boat, or do you get all new graphs?
And kind of a little bit of both. I'll swap some over, or kind of. Really, the main thing is I figure out what the guy buying the boat wants, and
Fair.
then kind of go from there. And this year I didn't really have a buyer lined up, so I just kind of rigged the new boat how I want it, and then just kind of worried about it. So this year I mostly sold everything that I used in 2025 with the boat that it's going to the new owner, and got all new stuff for 2026. But yeah, I kind of do a little bit of both each year. It really just kind of depends on the buyer and the situation.
That's fair.
You're running a Phoenix, right?
Yeah, Phoenix 21 XE.
21 XE.
Yeah,
Sweet. Those are nice boats, man.
awesome boats.
Yeah, that's been one of my favorites for sure to run around in. They're good in big water. They're fast. They handle well, and it's a very solid. I like this. I like the storage, the way everything's set up in it. It's a solid setup.
Yeah,
for sure.
for sure. There's a couple things they changed on this year's. They kind of updated the seats a little bit, so you sit a little bit different in the seats, and updated the console a little bit. So actually the units sit a little bit lower now, so you kind of have more vision over top of them. Some of those ones were stacking so many screens on the console, they were sitting up so high that you kind of had to peek over them to really see what was in front of you. So now they kind of lowered where the units mount on the console, so you got a little better vision over them, and just cool little improvements every year. It seems like they make them better and better every single year.
What's your setup as far as graphs up front, and I mean at the helm and the trolling motor, and then in the battery, that kind of setup?
Yeah, so I run a little bit of everything for electronics. I like I use Lowrance for most of my mapping and waypoint management, and it's what I've been familiar with. It's what I've used the most. So a lot of my waypoint management is in Lowrance format. So I can't really get away from switching to that. I have like each lake categorized into its own file, so everything's really organized and detailed in my waypoint. So that's really what's sticking me with Lowrance for mapping and side imaging, down imaging, and obviously then I have one on the front to transfer that over as well. And then also like to run a Humminbird at the console as well, just for another mapping option with Lake Master. and the Humminbird side imaging is pretty good in certain situations. So that's what I'm running at the console is 2 Lowrance and a Humminbird, and then at the front I'm running a Lowrance for mapping and waypoints, and then a Garmin for forward and a Garmin for perspective.
Okay, so you got two separate Garmins, one for forward, one for perspective.
Yeah. So I have three screens at the front as well, 2 Garmins and 1 Lowrance at the front. And really, like on the Bass Pro Tour, we can only use those for one period out of the day. So honestly, they don't get as much use as they might have used to, but those Garmins are strictly for live scope. Like I don't even turn them on if I'm not planning on using the transducer that's hooked to them. I'm not like doubling those as mapping units or anything. Those are just strictly forward facing units, whether it's the perspective for structure or the forward unit for, looking forward. That's pretty much all those units get turned on for.
So how has that been adjusting to the single period in the BPTs? Because that was a new rule change, and
yeah.
How have you adapted to that? How do you practice and how do you strategize when you're going to use that period with the forward facing sonar?
Yeah, that's something that's ever changing. I feel like, every fishery has been a little different on that. Some of them, the strategy has been figure out the best live scope area, the best scope area for your scope period, and then just kind of figure out the rest as you go. And then other ones have been, like if you look at this year's schedule, like Potomac River or Saginaw Bay, like the scope didn't even matter what you did. So you were kind of wasting your time if you were trying to game plan on when to use scope or when not to. So really, that kind of goes into every event for me. Obviously I love using the technology. So that's something that it really helps me break down a fishery very quickly using. So thankfully we can use it all of practice. That's the big deal, is being able to use it in practice and break down the fishery and understand how the fish are setting up to the piece of cover or structure or whatever, they may be hanging on. That way, in those non-live scope periods, you can still kind of present a bait and understand how those fish are set up and catch them that way. So, one that I look at that probably fit the strategy the best for me was probably like Lake Murray this year, where I had some fish that, were, out off of the bank where, I was throwing a minnow to those. I could never catch those without scope. And then, once that period was up, I would put those rods up and go fish boat docks. But in practice, I was able to really understand how those fish were relating to the docks and, use that information to fish without it and still catch some of those fish. So to answer that question, we are not allowed to use 360 in the non-scope period. So that is included in the forward-facing period. So you could use 360 in that one period a day, but you can't use it in the other two. So if we could, I would definitely be running 360 for the entirety of the day. But that is lumped into the forward-facing category for us.
Yeah, I remember talking to Drew about that. He said that, I can't remember what tournament it was, but the fish were kind of acting a little bit funky when he would throw his like Nico rig or his wacky rig out there. It would sink and they would follow it to the bottom, and then they would swim away from it and go back. Say they were relating to a dock post or something. They'd come out from the dock post, go down on it, just kind of look at it, swim back, and he would just leave it, and they would turn around and come back. And that's something that he learned using forward-facing sonar, looking at those fish, seeing how they reacted. So when his forward-facing sonar period was going, obviously he could see, but when it wasn't going, he knew that he needed to leave that worm on the bottom because of the information that he had gathered using that technology. So those are like super important things, even though you're not using it. If you see how that fish has been reacting and what they're doing, that allows you the confidence to kind of dead stick your bait and leave it there instead of, picking it up really quick and making another pitch. So
For
I thought that was
sure.
pretty cool.
Yeah, you got to be paying attention to all those little details, and now it's even more important with only having it for one period. So you got to really pay attention to those small details. And if you can use that little bit of information when you turn the screen off for the rest of the day, like that makes a big deal on, catching a few more fish. And that goes a long way in our format. So paying attention to those little things are super key.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, these rule changes next year in the like the pro circuit. Well, it's the new old pro circuit, I guess it is.
Yeah.
And then the Toyota and the BFLs, how they've got the 3-hour limitation. That's going to be interesting to see how that works. I think it's going to be tricky because I think the Toyota, correct me if I'm wrong, but somebody was telling me that it's only the last 3 hours of the day that you can use it. Whatever your period, say your weigh-in is at 3:15, you can turn it on at 12:15. If you weigh in at 3:30, it's 12:30. It could be wrong, or like the BFLs and stuff, you can choose a 3-hour period. Whenever.
Yeah, I think the Toyota's the same. You can choose a 3-hour period.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that'd be awful if you had like a morning 2-hour run somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, somebody was saying that, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. I mean, I guess it would keep it. Well, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. That would be.
Yeah.
Everybody at check-in the last 3 hours would just be out there just scoping randomly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure you're close by the ramp to get your full 3 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Chasing roamers.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. That was that on the BFL and Toyota level, that's something that I'm very curious to see how that plays out. I'm sure a lot of guys are intrigued as well on how it's going to play out with enforcing it, and how that's really going to look in a your normal tournament day. So I'm sure they have thought all through it and have a great plan for it. They're not just going to throw it out there and not think it through and have a good plan on how it's going to go. So, I definitely trust Major League Fishing on all that and think, they're going to do everything in their power to make it go smoothly. But I just think it's going to be super interesting to see how that goes this year.
Yeah, I know. Ultimately it's going to be up to the boater to be honest, and the responsibility is on him as far as cutting himself off after 3 hours. But I guess secondly would be the policing of the co-anglers. And that's the part that could be kind of gray. I hope nothing happens, because I can, your mind wanders and you come up with all these different scenarios that could play out. And hopefully, and I believe, 99% of the boaters are going to be responsible, and they're going to be honest and turn it off when they're supposed to, and keep track of all that. So this is going to be a learning year, and I think things will be refined next year as we, people find out the best way to manage that time, not overlap it. And because I know guys that, they have it on, but they're really not using it all that much. I fished with guys that kind of have it on. They'll they're beating the bank for 30, 45 minutes. And then, all of a sudden they remember that they have this technology, and they'll spin the head of the trolling motor around, see a brush pile or a stump, and play around for a little bit, and then get back to doing what they were originally doing, cranking or chatterbaiting or whatever. Well, those guys that aren't really focusing on the forward-facing sonar, I could see them forgetting that they even have it on, because they're really not like totally scoping.
Yeah, they're not zoned into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Next thing you know, they went 10 minutes past their time, and the co-anglers got to report them, and that could get that's never a good deal. So I think it's going to be, the boaters are definitely going to have to be responsible, and they've got some stiff penalties. I think it's 1 pound per minute if you go over.
Oh yeah.
That's
you're going to have to, you're just got to pay attention. You're going to have to set an alarm on your phone or something, have some sort of stopwatch or timer in the boat to just make sure that you're turning it off and reminding yourself every day. You know, I mean, it's so easy to just get in the zone and lose track of time. And like you said, you're not even using it, but you just have it up on the screen, and you know, you just lose track of time. Like, I can definitely see that happening. So it's going to be super important to make sure everyone sets a timer on their phone. You know, that's what I would be doing, is making sure that I'm setting a timer on my phone for 3 hours, and as soon as I turn it on, hit start, or you know, set an alarm on my phone when I do start fishing for 3 hours ahead of that time. You know, so it it's going to require you know, everyone to be on board and everyone to pay attention a little bit more, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
You know, the one that, and we can get off this topic because I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but the one that I'm interested in is boater on boater draw.
Well, they eliminated that year, and last year they eliminated that in the BFLs, because if you didn't have a boater and a co-link, you couldn't fish the tournament. So a boater, they had the responsibility of bringing a co-angler as a link, or vice versa. So
Okay.
there wasn't any boater and boater
Okay.
boater on boater last year.
I did not realize that.
That was always an issue. But yeah, last year was the first year where they made it mandatory that you had to link or you couldn't fish the tournament. So they've got rid of that.
Good.
Do you fish at all without forward facing sonar as a way to practice? Because I was thinking, you know, that's something that I'm gonna have to do a little bit over the next couple months. Is like right now we got a pretty good jerkbait bite going on,
Yeah.
and it's and we got a lot of grass lakes, so it's kind of hard to kind of sit out off a grass line and not just kind of look around and see what's going on in the grass. I mean, I've caught them for years just throwing a jerkbait with no graphs at all. So it's not like I don't know how to do it, but it's also like I'm so curious to see what's going on down there. And you kind of just feel like you're making random casts in the middle of nowhere, even though you are fishing, the outside of a grass line, and you know how the fish are setting up. But it's like I'm gonna have to kind of wean myself off of it a little bit to get some of that confidence back.
Yeah, it's different for sure. You know, like you said, I fished a little bit in the fall, you know, like when the grass and the frog bite gets really good, I'll go days without even turning it on. But like this time of year, if I'm out, I'm turning it on and using it every single day I go out. What I will do is, every once in a while I will purposely make sure that I turn my trolling motor the other way and just fish my bait back and act like, hey, I think there's a fish following it. Am I doing everything right? And just kind of try to catch some in those areas that I'm actually using it without it, to see if it can be done and how that goes. If I'm fishing a little shallower or something, I'm always trying that. And, something, if I have a buddy in the boat or whatever, if we're fun fishing at the home lake, like I'll go to the back of the boat and just start fishing off of there and, just try and catch a few that way, just to, make sure that I can still catch one, without being on the screen all the time. So, definitely play with that. But if I'm out, breaking down a new fishery or pre-practicing like I'm doing now, like it's on 100% of the time, just because of the information that I can learn from that, whether it be structure or how the fish are set up or how many fish are in the lake, all that sort of stuff. Like that knowledge is way more beneficial to me than trying to figure out how to catch them without it, when, I would much rather know where they are and how they're set up and figure out how to catch them in the tournament once we turn it off, rather than, not be as efficient in that time trying to figure them out. So,
yeah, I think that's actually, that brings up a good point. I think it's like, let's just stay on the jerkbait deal. If you are using, forward facing sonar to dial in the jerkbait pattern, you've kind of figured out the depth that the fish are. Maybe you've got the color that you think they're reacting to the best, and then you've got your cadence somewhat down and your retrieve down. Then stop looking at that trolling motor and you got the right presentation, you've dialed it in, and then try to catch them without, looking at it. Because I think sometimes it's like we're casting out to the fish, we're pulling it down, and once we get it to the right depth, we're working it over the fish. And I'm always trying to pay attention to the cadence, how long am I going in between jerks and what am I doing to trigger those fish. But a lot of times I'm thinking you may not totally be paying attention to what you're doing right here because you're paying attention to what's going on right here. And it doesn't really matter so much here. It's what's your bait doing underneath the water. So there could be a little bit of disconnect. So I'm thinking once you got everything kind of dialed in, then that would be a good time to, practice without using the front looker and see what happens maybe.
For sure. You nailed it there. Yeah, that's exactly what, I try to do is like, I will use it to dial in everything, the bait, the cadence, where I'm throwing it. And then after you have all that dialed in, that's when you can, you can just look away and just confirm that you got everything dialed in, and it's pretty cool when all that works out,
Yeah. Or like if you're throwing a minnow, say you're in 30 feet of water, the fish are suspended 15 foot down, you're casting out and you're just watching your bait down. Well, when you're not looking at them, you're going to have to count that bait down, mentally. You're going to have to know how long in 3 seconds it's down there at 15 feet. And that's where you need to start your retrieve or whatever. That's stuff it's mechanical and it's repetition and it's ingrained in our head. But I think it's not a bad idea to like just practice that part of it again, just so you get the total feel of it back. I'm just kind of speaking out loud for some of the things that I'll need to work on here in the next month or so.
No, for sure. That's some high level stuff there. That's something I feel like I would say the majority of anglers are not that aware of what their bait's doing, or, they're not that dialed in to what their bait is actually doing or what their retrieve looks like, what their cadence is. That's something that I always try to teach anglers is like, you have to be so focused on every single cast and every detail of that cadence and that retrieve. It's so specific to, be successful and catch a bunch of fish. So really paying attention to those small little details like that, can make you such a better fisherman in the long run. And, obviously you can learn so much quicker using the sonar and seeing what your bait's actually doing down there, but then you can translate that into fishing without it for sure. Like that is 100%. You just have to really pay attention to those small little details like that.
Here's a question. How many Elite Series guys do you think are going to take a side scan transducer and mount it on the front of their trolling motor like they used to before forward facing sonar? I don't know if you ever did that, but there was a time where you mounted the side scan transducer because they're going to have one tournament with forward facing sonar, the next one without. And so I was like, I'm thinking at least 60% of them do it, 70%.
Oh yeah. So the Elite Series guys, so they're allowed to run 360 on their non-scope tournaments. So I expect to see just about every Elite Series guy with a 360 unit on their boat this year. If they don't, they're going to have the side imaging transducer on there for sure.
Yeah.
So we are permitted on the Bass Pro Tour to have a side imaging transducer on our trolling motor and use that in the non-forward periods.
Okay.
So that's something that I utilized this year and I have plan on utilizing next year as well. But it's not nearly as efficient as 360 or obviously the forward facing, but definitely something that I put to use this year for sure.
I didn't realize the Elites could use a 360 at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was it. It wasn't really talked about a whole lot, but I just had this conversation with a buddy last week that's on the Elites, and I feel like most of the guys are going to have 360 rigged out on their boat for that reason, or at least for those tournaments. They may have the ability to take it off and on for the tournaments that they need it and don't need it, but that I would say that's going to be a big player this year on those non-scope events.
Yeah. So on a scoping event, you could have, forward in perspective, I guess, because they can use 2 transducers, right? So I think they
I think
can.
they can only have one, right?
Oh, so they can have the 360 and a forward?
I believe so.
Only one.
I'm not. Don't quote me on that. I think it's only one transducer for them, right?
Okay. I can't remember. I should look that up.
Yeah, I think that came out with the when they had the inch regulation. They had they have a limited inches of screen for the Elite Series, and I think they're only allowed one forward facing transducer. I could be wrong on that. I know we're allowed 2 on the boat. That's all we're allowed, but for some reason I thought they could only have 1. But regardless, yeah, you would have a forward and a perspective, or a a 360 and a forward. I feel like that's going to be the setup here on the Elites.
Yeah, no doubt. Because I remember that there were guys that would mount the side scan transducer on the head of their trolling motor, and it's super fuzzy unless you're moving along at a decent clip. You got to be going like 2.5, 3 miles an hour to even get somewhat of a decent image. But it's better than nothing, I guess.
And then when you do see that image, I mean, it's probably 30, 40, 50 feet behind you at that point, so you'd have to turn around and throw it. But definitely, like, I like to have that information on the front of the boat if at all possible. So that's something, like I said, I ran this year, and I have it rigged on the next boat as well.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So quick announcement, we are going to be giving away a $25 Baitworks gift card here before too long. So keep your ears peeled for that. We will do the random draw tour, and random draw tool, and I'll make that announcement. So
thank you.
Yeah, so everybody can get in that entry. And just to backtrack a little bit before we get into like the whole fuzzy dice thing, which is I definitely want to spend some time talking about that. What's been your path into tournament fishing? I mean, you're where you're at now.
Yeah.
Where did you come from, and how did you get there?
Well, I basically worked my way up through the ranks of FLW and Major League Fishing now. That's kind of the route I took, So I grew up in Pennsylvania, so I was heavily involved in Pennsylvania tournaments. I fished like the Pennsylvania Bass Nation tournaments, club tournaments, team tournaments around that area, and I kind of got stuck in a cycle of fishing those, and I just didn't see myself moving forward with that path. So and for me, it all started, in 2015, 2016 range. I decided to fish the BFLs in 2016. So I fished a full division of the BFLs in 2016, and had some success, made the regional, had a decent tournament there, but still didn't quite move on from that regional tournament. And going into 2017, like, I knew I had I'd been wanting to move up the ladder. I had a good season in the BFL, so I felt confident about moving up into the it was the Costa Series level at that time, but now it's the Toyota Series. So I fished the year of the BFLs, and then in 2017 I signed up for a full season of the Costa Series at the time, the Toyota Series now, and really was fortunate to win the second tournament in that season on the Thousand Islands, and that was really my launching pad to start my career. So I went on, had the 2 other decent tournaments with that win, and it finished me in the top 5 in the points. So I qualified for the FLW Tour in 2018. And, I took the money that I won from that tournament and paid my entry fees into the FLW Tour in 2018. So I went from the BFLs to the Toyotas to what would now be the pro circuit in 3 years. I just worked my way up each year. And then, once I was on the FLW Tour, I stayed there and fished that until 2022 is when I qualified for the Bass Pro Tour. So I've been on the Bass Pro Tour since 2023 till now. So kind of just worked my way up the ladder, and that's something that I've always preached to anglers is there's not a right or wrong path to the top level of professional fishing. Like every angler has a different story, has a different path. But for me, I was very what's the word I'm looking for? It was very like for me, I wanted to make sure that I did each step and took each step and succeeded at each level before I moved on. You know, I didn't want to get ahead of myself and jump ahead. One, I didn't have the finances or any opportunities to do that. So I would really put myself in trouble if I'd spent all that money and not succeeded or not done well. So that was one of the reasons, but definitely wanted to make sure that I succeeded at each level and was ready and learned. Like there's something to be said about learning at each level as you work your way towards the top to create and become a better angler as you go. You know, you learn things at the BFL level that will apply at the pro circuit level, but you're also going to learn things at the Toyota series level that's going to apply as you work your way up. So for me, it was very important to take my time and succeed at each level on the way up. But granted, it was fairly quick. It was just a year in each of them, but it was very important to me to climb the ladder and in each level.
Yeah, when you won that Toyota Series tournament, you said 2017, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you remember that tournament well? I mean, do you remember?
Yeah.
Were things did it feel different? Did it feel like it was gonna happen, or when you won, was it just like a lot of other tournaments where you were going through the process, you were fishing hard and staying focused, and you just ended up coming out on top? Or was there something, because there's something about winning a tournament. There's a lot of people that have decent finishes, but it's different when you win a tournament. I don't know if it's a confidence thing, but I'm just curious if there's some things that have happened during that tournament or thereafter where you're like, something just feels different. I've learned something from this.
I mean, so like in the actual tournament, like I never even imagined winning that tournament until I caught my 5th fish on the final day. Like I was like middle of the pack, and it was the top 10 for the 3rd day. I think I was in like 6th place going into the 3rd day. So like I was still a decent ways back from the lead. I think I was 4 pounds off the lead going into the final day. So I mean, honestly, winning was not on my mind at all. I was just going out, trying to. Obviously, I was happy with the top 10 and trying to do as well as I could. And the day started off with like a 6-pounder right off the bat. And then I caught like 5-pounder, and then I caught a 4.5, and then I caught another 5-pounder. And then when I caught the 5th like 5-pounder, I ended up with like 26 pounds that day. That's when it hit me. I was like, holy cow. Like I started doing the math in my head. I was like, if I have 26 pounds and the guy who was leading's been catching 22 each day, he had 44 pounds for the first 2 days or something. And it's like, if he just catches another 22 pounds, like I'm probably going to beat him. So like, that's when it hit me like, dang, you even have a chance at winning this. So, I mean, it was really totally unexpected. And, honestly, I'm kind of glad it was that way, because had it, I might have gotten my own head a little bit thinking about winning prior to that. But
yeah, right.
It was pretty special the way it worked out.
Here's a fun fact. You're the only dude in the last 6-ish years to beat Willer.
Yeah.
Angler of the Year.
Yeah.
That's solid
something.
That's
something to hang your hat on for sure.
That's right.
That is for sure. And I mean, that's the man to beat going into next year as well. That's the goal. So it's
seems like he's the guy to beat every year, though, isn't he?
Right. Oh yeah. Right now, for sure.
He's in his prime for sure. Yeah,
for sure.
What sets him apart?
Man, I really wish I knew. I mean, it's obviously a combination of everything, knowledge and work ethic and all of that type of stuff like that. you put all that together, and it creates really, really good fishermen. You know, you're seeing a lot of it with the you know, a lot of the younger guys coming up right now have that drive and that work ethic that you see. They just don't quite have the same knowledge that, you know, someone in their 30s has. So you know, Wheeler's kind of the perfect storm of having all of that right now. So it's yeah, that's really all I can come up with. You know, it's a lot of knowledge, time on the water, and you know, a very competitive work ethic for sure.
I think the next 10 years are going to be really, really interesting because Wheeler was one of the first guys that came out, youngest to win the All-American, right?
Yeah.
So he was like the first young dude to come out and make a name for himself and continue to make a name for himself. There's a lot of young kids out there right now. There's a lot of sub 22, 23-year-olds out there that have the time, that have the drive, and when they're by the time they're 30, they're going to have a wealth of knowledge in their brain.
Yep.
So this is an exciting time. I mean, like it, love it, hate it. The youth is the future of our sport. But I mean, my goodness, we haven't seen this kind of push in years.
Well, you take a 14-year-old high school kid, maybe even younger than that. They get involved in a successful high school bass fishing program where they're traveling around, not just their state, they're mingling in a region. So they're fishing. I don't know how many tournaments they fish a year. Let's just say they fish 10 tournaments a year. That's probably conservative, but 10 tournaments, and they're fishing multiple states that bump up against their state. So they're experiencing, let's say, 10 different bodies of water in 1 year. They do that for 4 years, they graduate, then they move on to college and they get on a successful college fishing team. There's a bunch of them out there. You give them just 2 years of college fishing experience, they've been fishing for 6 years, 7 years, you know, on a, not just their local body of water where they do jackpot tournaments or fishing their bass club, but they've literally got 6 years of experience fishing different styles of lakes and impoundments and rivers and tidal rivers and grass fisheries, you name it. So they're not coming in blind. They've got a lot of the jitters out of their system. You know, they know how to dump their boat in. They know how to get back to weigh in on time. They've dealt with big water. They probably dealt with flat tires, engine trouble, trolling motor batteries that die. All those things, you know, that lost fish, broken rods, you name it, the things that would spin us all out. They're experiencing that at a younger age. And so that stuff isn't such a, you know, a shock and awe when it happens because they've been through it. And then you add the adamant of social media, YouTube, there's just a plethora of ways to gather knowledge. And I mean, this is nothing new. It's been said on many live streams before, but you can take a technique like this fuzzy dice that we're getting ready to talk about. You can see somebody in the BPT fishing it and doing good on it. And then you can find a little bit of knowledge about it on YouTube. And you can literally the next morning, you could study it for a day. The next morning you can wake up, rig one up, go to the lake, learn how to catch fish on it. And you've not mastered it, but you've gained some confidence in a pretty brand new technique. And there's
for sure,
there's all this kind of sneaky stuff that's kind of backdoor techniques. Maybe there's Japanese YouTubers that have this kind of this stuff that's not so mainstream. There's guys that can learn that, and they can be 6 months or a year into that technique before it even starts to catch on over here. And you'll see, you know, you'll see people doing really good. Well, maybe they got something up their sleeve that they're not talking about. But years ago, that wasn't something that was available to the public. But it's so out there that if a person is willing to put in the time to research and then go out on the water and learn how to execute with said technique, they're just going to be way ahead. So that's a huge thing that's coming your way, Matt.
I know. It's scary. It's scary to think about. I mean, the sport's getting younger and younger every single year. You have more, you know, young guys qualifying for the higher levels, and they're sticking. They're not just being, one and done or a couple years
Right.
and done. Like, they're sticking around. So, it's bumping out older guys. And I mean, honestly, like, I love the competitive side of it. I love to see, the sports getting better. The anglers are getting better, and it honestly relates it more to your stick and ball sports, because any of those sports, the youth is always going to dominate. Like, always younger, faster, stronger, they're better. And I love to see that fishing is heading in that direction. Granted, I'm probably on the older side of that now. I'm 33 years old, and I feel like I'm an old guy, but it's crazy to see how good the young anglers are. Like you said, I actually just helped out. Wheeler had a high school fishing tournament on Chickamauga, and I was a captain in the Pro-Am tournament there, and got to fish with a couple of high school anglers. And it's just super impressive to see how good all of them are at such a young age. I wish I was that good at their age, and there's no telling how good they're going to be in 10 years. And then, the kids coming behind them and at that time. So it's really cool to see everyone just getting better at fishing.
Well, Gabe, you said it there. Like, you fish 10 different bodies of water in a season, and you fish 10 tournaments on 10 different bodies of water. So now you've got, let's call it 3 or 4 days of knowledge on 10 different bodies of water. I don't care who you are. That's a lot of learning in a year for the guys like you and I that are local guys, that we spend that amount of time on our 3 lakes here. They went
if they're driven, which
that's the main thing. That's what I was just going to say. You have to be like fully invested in it. You have to be driven. You have to be focused. You're not just going out there and goofing off and enjoying a day on the water. And that's what I love to see, is the passion and how serious some of these young anglers are taking it at younger and younger ages, and obviously some of them have parents that set them up well to allow them to do that. Not everyone has that situation. That's not a necessity by any means, but love to see that and have that, that drive and that determination at such a young age to absorb all the knowledge that's out there and take it all in and go practice and like you said, fish 10 tournaments throughout a year. If you actually pay attention and learn something from each of those, after a few years of doing that, you're going to have quite the knowledge of all these fisheries and just continue to get better.
I mean, just knowledge of fisheries. Think about the breadth and depth of your, we talked about your Lowrance portfolio, essentially. Like, what your waypoints are going to look like, the bodies of water that you've seen. We all grew up fishing, but I know when I grew up, and I'm sure Gabe and you too, Matt, like, fishing wasn't cool in high school. Like, I was like one of 3 kids in the high school that actually owned a fishing rod that, fished in a bass tournament. Like, there was only a couple of us.
I've said it before, but one of my checklists for the girls that I dated in high school was if they had a farm pond, they definitely got some like extra bonus points. Bonus points. They got cool points. It made me very interested.
And if Dad had a bass boat, holy cow!
Yeah. Right. No, you're right. It's these kids are training. They're actually training for a career. It's something that's attainable, and each generation that does it, it becomes more and more accepted, in not just in the high school scenario, but with parents, with people that they're surrounded with. Because, I guess today and not too long ago, if you told your mom or your dad when you graduated high school that you wanted to be a professional fisherman, they kind of would snicker. That's not really good luck with that. You need to be a doctor or a lawyer or an apprentice or something else. But it's a legitimate thing. It's a hard road. It's not all rainbows and unicorns, but it's attainable. And these kids are getting trained. When they come out, they're ready. They're a lot more prepared than they used to be. I think about me when I was younger, and I would go to Kentucky Lake and go fishing. You know, it was part vacation. You know, it was part just being out of school, part being away from you know, the grind of life. But that's not the way it's going down now. These guys they're going on the water with a specific focus. They've got a system. You know, they're getting taught a system of breaking down a lake. They're doing all their homework at the house. They're Google Earthing. They're looking at patterns for this time of year. They're checking out their contour lines, and they show up. So in 10 hours of somebody just going out and kind of putting around and fun fishing versus 10 hours of really focused time on the water, you know, it's fivefold from somebody that's out there fun fishing. So they're getting things done.
Well, they knew where they were going before they got to the lake. We didn't.
Right.
Yep.
We just went fishing. They went fishing with a purpose. We went fishing to go fishing.
Yeah, go fishing for sure.
They got a plan.
Let's talk about these fuzzy dice.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. So I kept seeing the fuzzy, you know, the Japanese anglers, they always bring all the cool stuff over here. And, you know, it started kind of showing up a couple years ago, and I'm like, what is that thing? It just looks, you're like, why would a fish eat that? What does it look like? We always want to, I can't remember the word, but we always want to think that a fish thinks the way that a human thinks, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
You know, we gotta rationalize it, analyze it. It's like, why would they eat that? It doesn't look like anything in the environment. And that's probably one of the reasons why they do eat that thing, is because it doesn't look like anything in the environment. But you know, so I kind of slept on it a little bit, but it's definitely caught my attention lately, because I guess the older I get, the quicker I'm learning that if something comes along and it's piquing some interest, you need to check it out. Like I slept on the A-rig a little bit. I slept on the chatterbait a little bit. The minnow, I was quicker with the minnow for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't wait too long in the minnow, and then I'm trying to, you know, get on the dice game a little bit ahead of myself, you know, not sleep on it. But you know, I got some of these the other day, and this is the Uni Yamamoto baits, and just the packaging on it. It's like a little critter that lives inside of this little cage. And you know, I was when I opened it up, I'm like, is this thing gonna jump out and run across the floor and go behind the refrigerator? We got to get all the mouse traps out and stuff. But so that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here, is just to kind of talk about like rigging this up, when to use it, the water temperature, is it all year long, those kind of things. So however you want to start, just talk a little bit about the dice and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the Yamamoto Uni. So that's a really, really cool bait. So that launched at ICAST there, and I was actually able to take one home from ICAST. Whether that was known or not, I don't know. May have accidentally ended up in my bag somehow, but
right.
we ended up with an Uni. So I've been fishing with one all summer. So since July till now. And honestly, I still have that same exact one. It has caught numerous fish. So right off the bat, you know, those baits are super durable. That it's unbelievable how durable the plastic are in the Uni. It's super stretchy. It's unlike any other plastic. Yeah, like you could literally stretch that as far as you want and it's not gonna tear. Like they're super durable. So it's really cool that, you know, it's not like any other plastic that Yamamoto makes. So it's very unique on that side of things. It's a floating plastic. So rigging it can be a little tricky, and we'll kind of dive into a few of my favorite rigging techniques here in a sec. But that bait, like I've caught, I don't know, I would say I've caught at least 20 fish on one bait, and it looks as good as when I pulled it out of the package. Like it's not a bait that you're gonna lose or you're gonna get tore up after a few fish. Like I know I've seen some comments when they launched here last week or the week before that, you know, $15 price tag was a little steep on that bait, but it really it'll outlast a pack of Cincos. Like you'll catch more fish on that bait than a pack of Cincos. So it's something to take into consideration when you're looking into buying some Unis. Anyway, rigging it and fishing it, it's obviously it's like unlike any other style bait. You know, it's kind of in a category of its own. I've been calling it more of like a sea urchin style bait.
Right.
You know, it's completely unique, and like I said, it has floating plastic, so you can't really just put a hook in it and throw it out there. It's just going to float on the surface. So, you know, really, I've rigged it two different ways that I fish it probably the most. And the first and easiest would be a drop shot. You know, just take a little bit bigger than usual nose hook style drop shot hook. So I like to use trocar hooks. Typically, if I'm drop shotting, if I'm nose hooking a drop shot, typically I'm fishing for smallmouth. I'm usually using like a number 2 or a number 1 hook, fairly small hook. But with that uni, there's a lot of plastic there, so I will go up to like a 1/0 sized drop shot hook for nose hooking. And I'm just going to rig him up on a drop shot and throw him, you know, around structured ledges, things like that. And, you know, be able to have the weight of that drop shot, get him down there quick, and just sit there and shake that bait just like you would a robo worm or something like that. And I've caught quite a few fish doing that.
Do you change anything on your leader length or anything like that when you're doing just
nope.
Standard
Nothing
drop
out
shot
of the
stuff?
ordinary. Yep, just standard drop shot stuff. The only thing that I really change is I want a bigger hook than I would with like a, you know, a standard flat, you know, shad shaped worm, or if I was nose hooking a bait like that, you know, I would definitely go with a little bit bigger hook for the uni. So, other than that, probably the more popular way that I've seen a lot of other anglers fish, and really, you know, when that craze started with a lot of the Japanese anglers, they're fishing it more of like a, you know, kind of a wacky style technique. You know, you're basically inserting a nail weight into the uni and just rigging it with a wacky or Nico style hook and fishing him just by himself. Now, when you do that, you can obviously vary the size nail weight that you put in there. I've been using just, you know, 16th, 3/32, whatever nail weight will fit in there. It'll sink decently quick. It's still a pretty slow technique. You can get some of the bigger like screw weights that will screw into the bottom of them if you want to get a little bit heavier and increase your fall rate. But when I'm fishing it that way, you know, the key is keeping it above the fish. So that's what I'm targeting. Really, some of the same fish that you would throw a minnow at, you're just throwing that a different presentation, and you're really just keeping that thing above him and just constantly shaking him, constantly pulsing that all those legs and tentacles, and keeping that bait above him and making him come up and eat it. And you know, when you have that light nail weight in there, the slow fall really allows you to do that and just kind of hover that in front of the fish over top of a stump or a brush pile or something, and just continue to pulse it. You know, that's the key on that, is those short pumps of the rod and continuing to shake the rod tip and allow all those tentacles to just pulse and flare. And the uni really excels with that, because of the little bulbs on the end of the tentacles. They actually vibrate a little bit as it falls if you have a bigger weight in it. You know, I've dropped mine in the fish tank a bunch and been really looking into it and figuring out the best rigging. And it's really cool to see, all those little tentacles just vibrate on the way down, just because of, you know, the weight pulling it from the bottom like that. And it does the same when you pulse it and pop it forward. So it's just a bait to keep above a fish and just really, you know, have that slow fall and almost hovering right there in front of them. Now, don't ask me what they think it is. I have no idea. All I know is they definitely eat it. Water temperature wise, I really don't have enough experience to know what one would be better than the other. You know, for me, it's really excelled every time I've thrown it. I've been able to catch fish on it. I just caught one, a couple smallmouth just a couple weeks ago on the home lake at Watts Bar. So, I mean, it's produced really every time I've gone out and thrown it, and it's, for me, it's just going to be another tool in the toolbox, another bait to alternate through. You know, if I'm fishing highly pressured fish, if you know, if I'm throwing my minnow at some fish and they're not reacting the way, I may just, you know, alternate an uni into there, a Nico worm, it's just going to be another bait into the rotation that you're going to be putting on these fish as they get more pressured.
So when you're rigging that up, how far, like this comes on a post, it sits on the post, so there's a hole that's going all the way through this. Are you putting your hook through that hole? Are you coming out, a lot less? Because I mean, you don't want to fill up that gap, because this is it's a small bait, but it's still got some meat to it. So how far in are you typically going in with your hook point and your hook?
Yep. So like you said, that bait is sitting on a wire in the package. So there is a hole that runs completely through that bait. So when I pull it out of the package, the first thing I'm going to do is put my nail weight in.
Okay.
So I'm taking the nail weight and running it right into that hole that the wire is, the hole that's through the bait that it's sitting on the wire in the package. So I'm running the nail weight through there. And then after the nail weight's in there, I'm taking my Nico hook and I'm going to start down through the hole that's in the top of the bait where the nail weight would be poking out. If you're choosing sides on it, I think it's a pretty symmetrical bait, so it doesn't really matter which side's which. But I just always, if I put my nail weight one way, I'm starting my hook on the other side, just for my own mind.
Right.
Anyway, I'm going to start the point of my hook down through that hole and just go down, maybe a quarter inch, half an inch, something like that, and come out more of the side of the bait.
Gotcha.
That way it's not all the way through there, and it has plenty of bite. That plastic is so durable that it's going to hold that bait on there. It's never coming off like that. So it's going to lock that bait on there. You're not going to tear that plastic where that hook's through. So it has enough bite there. And then there's still enough gap in that hook that if that bait kind of got turned around a little bit, that you still have enough hook gap that you're going to hook those fish. That's the really the main thing that I'm looking for on that. So yes, you can definitely see it good on forward facing. It's a fairly big profile for being such a small bait. I say that it's a small bait, but it actually has a fairly large profile, if you look at it with all the tentacles and stuff. So it does show up very well on sonar.
It's got a lot of areas for that beam to bounce off of,
for sure.
A lot of surface area.
There's a lot of things for it to hit there and reflect, and then you're always just looking for that thing that's sinking. So when I make a cast with that, I'm scanning and looking for that blob that's slowly sinking, and it shows up very, very well.
So I'm thinking, so there's other ones out there on the market. This is made by Bait Cave Customs, which is a kind of an Ozark area. I picked some of these up at the ABFA last week, but this has just got skirt material. It's more droopy, where this doesn't have any memory, so to speak. Where the uni has, the memory. It's coming back to center. So these are really two different baits, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. Those are basically two different categories of baits in my eyes. One, like the uni, I've been calling more of the sea urchin style, and that really kind of goes with that type of plastic. That real durable, stretchy plastic. That's kind of in its category of its own. Because another thing I forgot to mention, I'll touch on real quick, is storing the uni. If you do take him off and you're not, if you're done using him for the day, it's super important to make sure you store him back on that wire frame in that package if you can, because he'll form flat. If you lay him on the deck or lay him on the ground or something, he will kind of bend and form flat and not stay the shape of the uni. But
so you have little pets in your boat, uni pets in your boat.
Yeah, exactly. So I have found you can fit 2 or 3 in one of those packages. So you could slide a couple more on there and kind of consolidate space a little bit. That's what I've been doing. I actually had a couple questions on that the other day about how to store them, but that's something that I'm continuing to learn and figure out the best way to store them.
There's a new accessory for the boat, right?
Yeah, exactly. We need to come up with some storage solutions for those.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm thinking, guys, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but this would be a great stocking stuffer for your wife for Christmas, because you could put this actually up on the windowsill and it looks like one of those little succulent, cactus type plants that everybody likes. I mean, you
Perfect.
can't really tell what it
And
is.
double as a Halloween decoration too. I mean,
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think that's a pretty cool little bit.
and
Yeah,
since they're so durable, I
it would
mean,
look
that's
good.
multiple years of Halloween.
right.
Yeah, it would look good on someone's desk too. I imagine going in someone's office for a meeting or something, having an uni sitting there as a little
Yeah.
desk toy. I think that'd be pretty cool.
It's a great conversation piece. I mean, you can
Exactly.
pretty much, you could say, when I went scuba diving off the coast of Madagascar last summer, and we caught two of these and took them back. Yeah, we
Yep.
kind of had to put them in our suitcase and get them through TSA, but we made it on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so the uni and the dice style baits, I feel like, are totally different categories. You can kind of fish those other more traditional plastic with silicone skirt ran through them, very similar to the uni. But to me, they have different uses and kind of a different category of bait. Yamamoto has a whole fuzzy line of baits coming out here very soon, like the fuzzy nut. It kind of very similar size and shape to the one you just held up there, and to the uni as well. So for me, my success with that style bait has strictly been on a drop shot. When the dice craze kind of started, I went and bought some of the actual OSP dice, like just a square hunk of plastic with skirt ran through it, and I caught some smallmouth on it. But for me, that's just putting it on a drop shot, just as another alternative bait. I feel like the uni has a lot more potential in kind of unlocking with different presentations and different scenarios, just because of the plastic and the action that it has while you're pulsing it. I feel like the silicone skirt stuff is more of just kind of a finesse approach to a drop shot that you were already throwing, whereas I feel like the uni almost unlocks a category of its own, if you will.
That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, I know, looking at them and kind of playing around with them, there are some differences, but now that you put it like that, it does seem like it can be its own little bait. If you had the balls to do it, this would probably be a cool Carolina rig bait too.
Oh
Really
yeah,
light-
with it floating, I mean, that's a good idea. I'll definitely have to try that out this year. That's a definitely definitely a good option. You just rig
Yeah.
it on the same hook, just a wacky style hook. You can nose hook it and drag him around on a Carolina rig. He's floating. He's going to float up behind a Carolina rig pretty good. That's definitely a good option.
Yeah.
I think flipping that on a bed would really piss one of them off.
Yeah, on a bed. Yeah, exactly. Somebody was mentioning that, like bed fishing.
Yeah.
I was just curious. So, okay,
I
so
wonder if they're going to make a big. Do you think they'll make a bigger one?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like that would be the next move with the uni lineup. If they're successful, I feel like Yamamoto would definitely look into expanding it, or I don't see why that wouldn't be open to a conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Golf ball size orb in the center with
A
like
golf ball, yeah.
Senior uni.
Yes.
maybe it's hollow on the inside and it floats a little bit more, or has a foam core in it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm revealing too much, guys.
No, I mean that's the kind of stuff that happens. People just kind of start brainstorming, and next thing you know, you got something new.
Yeah, you got a bait idea.
Put some eyeballs on it. What about colors? Have you experimented around with different colors and found some situations certain colors work better than others?
Well, I have not had the opportunity to experiment a whole lot with colors. I've literally had one bait for the summer, and it was just watermelon seed. So that was, kind of the one that obviously that was the one I threw. I have messed around with the other style baits like that, in other colors as well. And, you know, for me, the only success that I've had has been with, you know, more of your natural colors, a brown, a green, maybe some sort of shed looking color I could see working. But for me, it's mostly been, you know, the browns and greens. You know, the uni style bait, I would say it does not work better with smallmouth or largemouth or spotted bass. I would say it's pretty well even across the board. Like it's going to catch all three species pretty much the same, pretty evenly.
Phil's got a brilliant idea. An
I
A
like
rig
it.
to uni.
I like it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
already expensive enough if you lose an A rig with minnows on it.
Yeah. Well, no, let's just replace the blades with unis and then still have swimmers on the back too.
They've never seen that.
Yeah.
What about like rod and reel setup for you know, for this particular bait?
Yeah, I mean, I've just been throwing it on just, you know, like the same as a Nico or a Wacky setup, you know, just a 7-foot medium spinning rod, braid to fluorocarbon, just the exact same setup that I would throw a Nico worm on, and just you know, working it very similar to a Nico as well. Just, you know, the main thing with that I've found with the uni is you always want to keep it above them. You don't really want to let it just kind of settle into the bottom. Just 'cause I have not had any bites with the uni actually sitting on the bottom. They've all been while I'm working it and kind of hovering it above them, whether it's on a drop shot or, you know, with the nail weight.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is something you could. I don't see why you couldn't. Somebody, Stephanie was asking if it's something you can just fish, you know, down the bank, just without forward facing sonar. I don't see.
Sure. For sure. I mean, you can absolutely throw it anywhere you would throw a Cinco or a Nico. You know, it's going to be more of your, it's just another tool for throwing, you know, in that shallow cover like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Without sonar. You know, when you have the sonar, I mean, it unlocks deeper water if you have the patience to count it down to, you know, 10, 15, 20 foot of water. And get it down there. But I mean, it's the same. You know, like I said, I would fish it very similar the way you do a Cinco or a Nico.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow I have the day off, and I'm going to be fishing a lake that's got a lot of floaters out there. So I'm going to be out there playing around with it. I'm curious. I may actually catch my first urchin fish tomorrow. It's kind of the plan.
Yep.
Play around with it.
Give it a different look. You know, if they've seen a lot of minnows, the uni will definitely trigger some of those fish because it's something they haven't seen.
Yeah. What about the hook set and stuff? I mean, you know, it's a little bit thicker bait. Have you noticed that you can hammer them right off the bat, or do you have to wait a little bit? Is there anything that people need to know about, you know, the actual way the fish typically takes it, and then in the hook set, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm still really learning on that and really dialing that in. I will say I have noticed that it does seem to be better if you give them a little bit longer than you typically would. You know, if you see one or feel one bite, or you know, you see one chasing it on sonar and you feel like he's going to bite, I feel like just giving him a little, you know, a little extra second, I've noticed gives them a chance to kind of clamp that bait down or maybe inhale the entire bait before you set the hook. So I would say definitely if you have the patience when you feel that bite to just give them a little extra second before you reel down into them to allow them to, you know, because there's a lot of plastic there. He could just be nibbling on one of the little tentacles or a couple of them, and then inhale the entire thing. So, you know, I have definitely, you know, had some bites and not hooked them, and I've kind of just been paying more attention to that and trying to, you know, when you feel that bite, to just give them an extra second. And in my mind, I imagine them just maybe getting a little bit and then eating the whole thing, and then you're setting into them.
I'm thinking you could hit these little tentacles with some like spike it marker if you wanted to just make it a little bit different. Put some shard on the end of these, just to.
Yeah. So I don't know if that style plastic will hold the dye, but that's a good idea.
Okay.
It may work. I don't know. I'm just spitballing that you know, that type of plastic may
It
not.
may eat the tentacle off of
Well,
it.
yeah, it could do that too. It could start melting or something. There's we really don't know. So it's something
It's
to
hard
be
to
aware.
experiment with a $15 bait, isn't it?
I know that's the other thing. You don't want to ruin your bait, but
Well, only the thing is you got 20 tentacles on there. If you
Yeah,
run
just
2
take
of
one
them,
of them.
it's okay.
try
It's
one.
gonna,
Yeah,
it's gonna still work, you know.
you can try
Pickwick
one.
Pirate says it dissolves. So
Oh, okay. Thanks for the heads up.
maybe that's the answer that we don't have to find out.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it tomorrow. I'm gonna hit one of them with chartreuse to see what happens.
Yeah, it'll melt the whole thing. It'll just melt down the leg and tentacle.
It'll smoke and just
You'll end up with
blow
no
up.
bait anymore. Yeah.
I think Marshall and I were talking about
Yeah,
that
and I'll
the
just
other
have
day.
this pretty little case, and that's it. You know.
We were
Yeah.
talking about like if you're dipping in your bottle of Spike It or Dip and Dye, whatever you're using, if you break the tension of the plastic, the film that's on the outside of your plastic, the acetone will snap it in half and dissolve it.
What?
Yeah. So like, typically we're just, it fits in the hole and it's fine.
Yeah.
I was dipping rage toad flippers one day, and you'd have to stuff them inside of there. And as soon as you'd pull them out, you'd break that tension or cut the side of it a little bit with the top of the lid, and it would take the tail right off of it.
Really?
Dang.
Yes. So I don't know if it was the Strike King plastic or if it was.
Maybe it's the salt. Was it interacting with the salt somehow?
But I've dipped all kinds of stuff that are heavy salt, like
true.
Zincos are super heavy salt.
That's weird.
I don't have any problem with that, but it for me it was like once you broke that surface tension or that film, that shiny film on the outside of a plastic, it would just eat right through it.
Huh. Crazy. I haven't heard that. That's good. That's good to know.
That's crazy.
Huh. Are you back a little bit, just to back up a little bit on the braid? Are you throwing I mean, there's kind of been you see a lot of guys are downsizing their braid. Are you staying around that 12-pound size, or are you going down to like 8, 10? What braid are you throwing mainly for that?
Well, I use Cigar braided lines, so they're the sizing of every brand braid is a little bit different, and even in the Cigar lineup, like I use the PEX8 braided line, the new thin, extremely thin JDM braided line from Cigar, and I use it in the 18 and 21 pound test. But it is comparable to other like 8 to 10 to 12 pound range. It's extremely thin braid, but it's classified as an 18 or a 21 pound. So, it's tricky to just say, I just throw it on this pound test braid, because every brand's a little bit different. So, definitely I like an extremely thin braid. I've been using that PEX 8 for the last 2 years now, and really, really like that braid. So using that thin braid, allows you to cast better and allows that bait to sink a little bit faster, because it's so light with just a little nail weight in there. Having less resistance and less drag is going to help that bait sink a little bit faster.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Every company has different, the braids.
Everyone. Even in Cigar's line, like they have their Smackdown braid, their Tactics braid, and the PEX8 braid. And each one of those, if you took, the same pound test in each one of those, they would be completely different diameters and act completely different on your spinning reel. So it's kind of hard to just say that, but like you said, I prefer the thinner braid. I would say it's more comparable to your standard 8 to 12 pound range of your standard braids across the board.
Yeah. What leader connection knot have you been using? Florida.
FG knot. I've been on that knot for probably the last 4 or 5 years, and that's the only one I'll ever tie.
How'd you learn to tie that? What was your process of learning that? Because it's not easy.
Not easy, it's tricky, and you got to spend a lot of time figuring out how to hold your your fingers and use your mouth and use something else. You know, it's you need a lot of extremities to tie it properly. But you know, for me, I came up with a good system in my boat where I lay my rod down and the line wraps around the passenger seat of the boat. So I can pull on that line and have tension on that. And I hold that with my teeth. And then I take the main line with my left hand and build it using both my hands there. But having that tension, you know, having something to hold the rod tip away from you, like I used, like I said, the passenger seat and wrap my line around there. So that way I can pull the main line tight and hold it with my teeth. Having that tension is the most important thing to be able to build the FG knot, and finding the best way that works for you is the most important thing in tying an FG knot. You know, I know guys will use, I've seen them tie it to their belt loop or tie the braided line to something. And that way, you know, it always has that tension. You know, there's lots of different ways you can do it, but that's really the most important step in tying a proper FG knot.
Yeah, I can't bite down on the line. So that was when I've tried to tie it. I've tried other things like wrapping around your foot and, you know,
yeah,
putting like shoving the rod between your legs and holding on to it so you got tension on. Because the biggest key with the FG is tension, right?
Yeah. So yes, you need tension to be able to pull the knot tight, but you don't want too much tension on the other side. So it's like there's a sweet spot of tension that you need to tie the perfect FG knot, but you got to have the ability to pull basically 4 tag ends at one time, and we only have 2 hands. So you need something holding the other 2 tag ends to be able to pull that tension.
What's your time frame to tie one?
I can tie one pretty quick. I mean, you know, I would say 30 seconds to a minute. I can be done, no problem.
Wow. Yeah.
Have you broke that knot?
It's not gonna break. Like you'll use your entire leader all the way down. You know, honestly, your braid will break before the knot breaks. Like, you know, the breaking strength of the braid, may have a weak spot in your braid or something that will break before your knot breaks.
I'm with Phil.
Me too.
But I want to revisit it again on a really cold winter night when I got nothing else going on. I want to mess around and try it.
You just need the practice, and I mean take your time, go slow with it, and just make sure that after each wrap that you pull the tag end tight and allow the knot to kind of build out. It's hard to explain without a visual like the beater as I'm building it. But
do you have a video on your channel that shows it? I don't know if you ever did a video on your channel. Can you hear us? It froze up. Yeah, I need to go back and revisit it. I actually got to where I tied it and it held. But it's one of them deals where I want to be able to tie it in a real-time scenario when I'm out on the water, because it's different tying it.
I want to be able to tie it without watching a video of how to tie the knot.
Right. But I think that just comes from repetition. Hey, Matt, if you can hear us, you can close out and come back in. I lost your signal.
I don't know if I think I may have had 1 or 2 successful FG knot completions. Other than that, it's been just lots and lots of choice 4-letter words and lots of wasted time. And every time that I tie it, it's like, I don't know why I'm wasting all of, like, when he says that 30 seconds to a minute, like, is a fast one.
That's fast.
That's insane fast. Everybody that I've talked to is like, oh, it's still like a 2-minute knot. It's like, man, I can tie the Alberto knot in 15 or 20 seconds and be 100% confident in that.
Yeah. I think that's a good knot too, for sure. I think, and I don't have a problem. I think the thing with a knot is like that leader, the braid to fluorocarbon connection is having a knot that's got a low profile, obviously for coming in and out of your guides. But if you want to put, like, when we fish with Dell down there, he puts like 30 or 40 feet of leader on.
Yeah.
If you got a big knot, it's gonna catch when that.
Do you ever have any problem with that Alberto catching?
Not really. No, not if I tie it right. I don't.
As long as you trim your tag. Only time that I get is if I get in a hurry and I don't trim a tag.
Especially the fluoro. If you got the fluoro stick out just a little bit, that's what gets you. Because that braid's soft. It's gonna lay over, but you got to get that really, really tight.
Also, it depends on if you're throwing like really, really light braid and like a 12-pound fluoro leader, it seems to want to crimp a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of how the knot is tied.
Yeah, I've heard this. Mike's talking about this. Yucatan knot. That's come up a couple times. I haven't researched it or whatever, but I need to.
But he even says it's temperamental to tie, though. So I mean, like,
we got Matt back.
That's why I kind of avoid some of those knots that are temperamental.
We're still talking about the FG knot.
I'm back. My phone died. It gave me a warning of like 10% like 2 minutes ago, and then it was just dead. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you jumped back on here. Let's give something away here. I'm going to pull this up, and then we got a couple more questions for you. Actually, before we give it away, let's just I wanted to dive in, not dive in, but wanted to just touch on the Major League Fishing, the team series, because I think it's the best thing to come along for quite a while, especially the new format. I know in 2024 you won the championship, you and your team, but back then, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like a 3-person series, right? Wasn't there 3 anglers that were fishing on team?
So yes, well, I won one of those, and then I won one of the 2-man as well. So I've actually won one of each. But yeah, the first one was the 3-man team out of 3 different boats, where you wore the headset and kind of worked together, which that was pretty fun. That was cool to fish that way. But I agree. I think the 2-man team in the same boat is it. That's the one that relates to more people. It so many people fish buddy tournaments every single week, weeknight, weekend, whatever. I feel like it relates with the fans, and it's extremely fun to fish as well.
Oh, I bet it is, man. Yeah, I really look forward to it. I kind of forgot about it this year, and it kind of snuck up on me and surprised me, and I got back into it a lot more. I like the way. I mean, you know that we've all fished team tournaments, and a team tournament was our first tournament that we ever fished.
More than likely, yeah.
Yeah, I think about myself. I started fishing in a bass club, but even some of those bass clubs, you may be fishing with another guy, and it's not actually team format, but it's your best buddy. It's like a guy that you really know and stuff, and then everybody jackpots different tournaments around here, so it really hits home with a lot of people. I like watching the communication aspect, especially when things are not going according to plan, or people really have to depend on each other and kind of pick each other's brains. Like, okay, this isn't working. What are we going to do? And then, you see the, I don't know, you just see the different minds working in different areas. And because we've all been there, man. We've all been out there and things are not going the way we want.
Yeah, that's
who have you fished with in the team series? I can't remember.
So the 2-man teams, it's been me and Spencer Sheffield, all four events that we fished together. So I fished with him for 4 of them now, and then the 3-man, it was with Wesley Strader and Scott Suggs.
Okay.
Gosh, I bet that was
entertaining, to say the least.
I can imagine. So.
Imagine having a headset in with direct line to Wesley Strader for 8 hours straight.
Oh man.
Was there a mute button?
No mute button.
That's funny.
Do you get to pick on the dual one? Do you get to pick your partner?
Yeah, so we have a draft. It kind of there's 2 drafts throughout the year, and it's basically goes off of your current AOI standings at the time
Okay.
of the draft. So like the first 24 will be captains, and then they can choose anybody they want. Kind of goes down in order, but a captain can choose another captain. So a lot of it comes down to who you want to fish with. That's first and foremost is I want to make sure I'm fishing with someone I get along with, fishing with someone that I feel like, fishes at a high level similar to myself. So we get along and fish well together. And, Spencer and I have been buddies for a while, and we fish together well and work together well and all that. So I feel like we have done well in those. The last couple haven't ended quite the way that we've wanted them to, but I'm going to plan on continuing to team up with Spencer heading into next year when that opportunity comes up.
So how do you guys work out who's running the boat?
A lot of it has come down to just the direction that we're going. So like I use left-hand retrieve reels, so I set the hook over my left shoulder and he uses right-hand retrieve. So if we're fishing the wrong way there, we could cause a problem, if we both set the hook at the same time. So that's something that, you just kind of work together through in the boat. And, if we're fishing one direction, he'll run the front. If another direction, I'll run the front. Just kind of go from there.
Does that make running forward-facing sonar when you're both standing up there looking at it easier?
It can be a little tricky for sure.
I would say though that if you're flipping this way and he's flipping that way, like that's a heck of a lot easier than two guys trying to.
Yeah, we haven't had a whole lot of events where it played a major role just yet. But the one in Wisconsin this year, we definitely scoped around for a little while, and I mean we were both, whether he was running it or I was running it, it didn't matter whose foot was on the pedal. We could still see where the head of that trolling motor was facing, and both of the baits would be landing pretty close to where the target was. That's for sure.
That's cool.
So do they really keep it a secret until the day of the morning of the tournament? They really do. Okay.
We have no idea the lake that we're going. Obviously, we know the town, so they release the town that we're going and give us like the hotel that the host hotel where the tournament in the boat yard and everything is. They give us that information 30 days prior, but at that point you can't research any lake in that area. Like you can't even look at the map to know what lakes are in that area. So there's no information allowed at all on those events. All we know is to be at the hotel, and the last one was in Shreveport. So they're like, be in Shreveport on this day, and you load the boat up the night before with your tackle and rods and everything, and then they'll say, okay, we're leaving the hotel parking lot at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Be in the truck, and then they drive you to the ramp. And when you pull into the parking lot of the ramp, that's really the first time you know where you're fishing that day.
Huh. So what happens after that? What's the process once you get to the lake?
Once you get to the lake, they'll get together the 4 teams or however many's fishing that day. Most of the days are 4 teams, and they hand you a paper map of the fishery and let you know if there's any boundaries or any restrictions on where you can go or anything like that. And then it's like, here you go. We're generally we'll have 30 minutes or so to get the boats launched before we take off, and then we have a 30-minute ride around to figure out the lake. And then it's lines in. It's pretty fast paced. It's pretty cool, and you have no idea what you're going. So, you try to prepare tackle and rig rods the night before, but it's always chaos when you get there in the morning, and you're like, well, maybe I need to rig up this or re-rig this. Or once you see the fishery, you're pulling out all different baits and stuff. So it's very fun and fast paced, and it's refreshing. Honestly, you don't have to spend a whole bunch of time practicing or researching anything. It's just show up and figure them out.
Yeah, it's not like in practice where you catch a couple 5-pounders that don't do you any good. Winning practice, you're not out there winning practice. You're actually
Right.
everything you're catching is going towards the top end. That's cool. I don't know. I really like that. I think it's like I said earlier, I think it's the best thing to come along. I'd like to see them. Well, this is a good question for you. What would you think about this? And having a whole team series where the sponsor, so to speak, there's O'Reilly Auto Parts, Team O'Reilly Auto Parts. It never changes. Throughout the whole season, there's 4 or 5 tournaments, and whatever team, the same anglers are on that team, and they fish the entire season underneath that sponsor. What?
Yeah.
Is that something that would interest you, doing something like that?
Well, I mean, I as long as it's in addition to like the Bass Pro Tour, right now they're specialty events, but I definitely like that idea. I would definitely like to see that. That way, fans can kind of get behind the teams and the anglers and kind of, root for the same team throughout the entire season, if you will. Because the way it's set up now, we have a draft for the first 2 events and a draft for the second 2 events. And, you have those set team names, but it could be 2 different anglers. And even the same angler could be fishing with a different guy in the next event. So it's just hard, for fans to follow along that way. So I would love the idea of, having a set team for the entire year and that's your team. And that way, fans and everyone can kind of get behind it and root for you guys. I think that would be pretty cool. We have a winner for a gift card, right?
You have a winner. Yeah. Congratulations. He won. Michael won 2 weeks ago. What do you think, baby? Your call. One a month, or are we gonna let him win it?
Let him have it.
Okay, we'll let him have it.
It's Christmas. Let him have it.
Okay, it's Christmas. I'll get a hold of him. Congratulations. Write it down so I don't forget it. Oh, okay. I know what I wanted to run by you real quick. Let's take this away. So Bill Lewis has got a new bait that just came out. Let me pull this up. And it is that time of the year where a lot of guys are throwing. I can find it.
I'm curious where you're going with this.
I know, man. I'm
really
building this up.
I'm on the edge of my seat, and he's going to throw up like a Bill Lewis rattle trap or something.
The problem is I've got like 7 or 8 tabs open up here. So I'm trying to find the right one.
I got 2 things in mind where you could be going with this. So
okay.
I'm prepared.
We're about to find it. It's got to be on here something. There it is. All right. Here we go. Can you guys see that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't have any of these, but it's on my stocking stuffer list for Christmas time, because there's definitely a need for this bait this time of year and in the Bill Lewis lineup. They came out with I had one down here. I actually did a video with it, but the DR24, the deep diving.
Yeah.
They came out with that.
Yeah.
There was definitely a need for that. And then I feel like this hammer flat crankbait is definitely filling in a gap in the Bill Lewis line. So I don't know if you've had a chance to, throw that around. If you have, tell us a little bit about it.
I have 2 of them, and that's all I could get my hands on.
You steal those from iCast too?
I did not steal those. Those ones were shipped to my door. They showed up at my house. But it is a awesome little crankbait. So I will say it has the same tight vibration that you see in a lot of flat side crankbaits. And it's really like fishes a lot like a square bill. Like you can bring it through some heavy cover, and I got it to come through some pretty gnarly stuff pretty well.
That's cool.
And did not get hung up at all, and that was super cool. I caught a few fish on it. No big ones yet, but I've caught probably 5 or 6 fish on it now, and that's been super cool for just a little bit that I've thrown it. But the biggest takeaway from it is I have to say it is the loudest flat-sided crankbait I've ever heard.
Really?
Like it makes some noise. It is very loud, like makes a loud knocking, rattling sound, and I think that's pretty cool. I think it's really going to excel, and I'm excited to get my hands on some of those cool colors you're showing right now, and I feel like
Yeah.
it's going to be a big player on the Bass Pro Tour this year with our schedule and with our format with no scope for two-thirds of the day. A crankbait is kind of making a resurgence, and I see the hammer flat being a big player in my boat this year. I know I'm going to have one rigged up for stage one at Lake Gunnersville. That's for dang sure. I know that's going to be a bait that gets mixed into the rotation quite a bit.
I like that color right there.
Yeah.
Color. There's a lot going on in there. I like that little lateral line down the middle. It's kind of glows on you. Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm gonna be picking up a couple. I think I like the ideal of that, like the SB57, that circuit board, which is a lot more durable. And
yes,
just you telling me that it comes through cover, which is nice, because that's one of the things I've had problems with in the past is there's a lot of good flat crankbaits out there, but they do have a tendency to get hung up a little bit more than in a square bill. Yeah, so that's exciting. This is that DR24 dude I was talking about. That's a pretty cool little crankbait.
yeah,
I haven't thrown it yet, but I was doing some research on it, and I found you took it out and tested it out on your video. You got some. By the way, if you guys haven't checked out Matt's YouTube channel, do yourself a favor. He's hitting it hard, man. You're grinding. I think, what are you doing? Like 3 videos a week or so?
Yeah, we're still doing that. I appreciate the shout out. Yeah, if anyone wants to check it out or whatnot, definitely head over, check out our channel. We got lots of informative stuff. I guess I'm personally contributing to making the youth better at fishing, And they're going to be taking my job here soon, but I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and yeah, we got a cool video of this DR24 out on the water, some live scope footage showing how deep it actually dives, and I know, yeah, it gets down, and it gets down quick, and it stays down there and roots around pretty good. Obviously not the best time of year to be throwing it right now, but as we get into the summer this coming year, it's going to be a staple for sure.
Yeah, the thing that shocked me on your video with the live scope footage is that one you made a really long cast, and that sucker came in the screen at like 24ish, and then it went straight down to the bottom in 26, and it wasn't just like clipping the bottom. It was actually digging. It was grinding in the bottom at 26 feet.
Like it was on the bottom.
Yeah, it was on the bottom. That's, to me, that's something that you don't see a crankbait get in that 26-foot zone and actually dig. It's like it could have went 28 or something.
Yeah, and a lot of them will hit the bottom and then kind of blow out to the side, and then kind of rise up and then go back down, hit the bottom again, and kind of rise up. But what I like out of this one is you can just grind it into the bottom, and just like you would a square bill crankbait or something in shallower water. Like,
what line did you say you were throwing with that?
Do what?
What line were you throwing when you hit 26?
Just 12-pound Invisex.
Okay. Nothing crazy. They're not like throwing 6 or 8 to get it down there.
Nope. 12-pound Invisex, which Seaguar's a little bit thinner than some other fluorocarbons, so it runs a little thinner, but still, it's nothing crazy by any means. It's pretty much my standard deep crankbait setup, 12-pound line, and it's a big rod, a 7-11 that allows you to cast it super far and handle it, but nothing crazy on that.
When do you bump that up to like a 15? Or do you?
Rarely do I do that. Some of those big giant crankbaits, I could see throwing it on 15. I've thrown like a 10XD on 15 before.
Yeah.
But it's just because they're so big and heavy, and if you're grinding it in the shell, you don't want to cut your line and stuff. But For me, I would say 95%, not maybe higher than 95%. I'm throwing 12-pound and BizX.
I'm
That's
in the same boat for like 6XD size and down. But I also will take like a 5XD and run it on 15 though, like
yeah,
because I'm throwing that in the junk. But I guess it all depends on what you're throwing it in too. If you're throwing it
for
in a bunch
sure.
of cover, I mean, I'll put 20. I'm not afraid to put 20 on it either, and run it down into the stuff and then horse them out.
Yeah, if you're bumping it into stumps and brush and stuff, I mean, definitely can throw it on heavier line and just you just got to be aware of how deep it's running.
Talking about that flat crank.
I would say it's you definitely can just burn it, but the way that the bill is designed on the DR24, I would say it's more of a digger than a burner type deep crankbait, if that makes any sense. Like it's more for getting down there and grinding in the bottom rather than burning it, just because of the way that the bill kind of extends up into the bait. It almost, the harder you crank it, it almost just wants to dive deeper. You can't really just keep it at the same depth and just burn it faster. It's like the harder you crank it, it wants to just dive deeper. It just wants to continue to dive. So you can't really just burn it much faster. It just wants to continue to dig and dive, hit digging into the bottom. So you could definitely burn it pretty quick. I mean, I typically wind a crankbait pretty fast. I'm not slow rolling it by any means, but the issue, if you want to call it an issue, that you would run into with it is it just wants to continue to dive deeper and not just kind of stay put and just go faster.
Mm-hmm. What about that flat crank? Can you move it pretty quick? The hammer crank?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of experience. I've definitely burnt it, but majority of it, I was just casting and winding at some rock and some riprap. I haven't really dug into the nuances of, burning that or really even throwing it over grass or anything much yet. So still learning on that. And don't want to say something that's just not true on that one,
Appreciate the honesty. Definitely. Let's see here. I'm going to kind of look through these comments real quick to see if we got any other questions before we wrap it up. Yeah, so what's coming down the pipe on your YouTube channel?
Oh, that's a good question. I probably need to film a few videos to get us through the holidays here. Actually, now that you mention it, no, we drop 3 videos a week, so Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Okay.
New video, and majority of the content on my channel is going to be, informative stuff, how-to stuff, tips and tricks, bait rigging, that kind of stuff. That's majority of what we do on the channel right now. We're trying to get into more fishing stuff, but it's very time consuming and time is hard to come by, when you're in the middle of the tournament season for sure. So this week, so today I actually just dropped a video on how I'm organizing my tackle going into this year. I spent a lot of time this fall reorganizing and consolidating a lot of tackles. So that was the video that dropped today. The one that goes Thursday. Let's see, what do I have planned for Thursday? Oh, I think it talks about, building minnow heads. So building the perfect jig head minnow or jig head for your minnow. I kind of dive into some of that type of stuff. And I think Saturday's video I got scheduled. And then after that, I'm going to have to film some more to get us through the rest of the holidays. But Saturday, it's kind of a deep dive. It's like a, kind of a year-end recap of the best baits of the year for me. So what's really cool on the Bass Pro Tour is every fish catch is logged and they track, the bait that you caught it on. All that's logged into Score Tracker, and it's all public information. You can go back and look at all the tournaments and log into Score Tracker Insider, it's called, and see, if you click on the angler's name for that tournament day, you can see the bait that he was throwing, that the official inputted in the Score Tracker when he caught that fish. So I kind of went back and looked through all the catches that I had this year, and kind of picked out some of the baits that excelled the most for me, and made a little video about that, talking about, what baits, and some of them may surprise you. Some of them, you of course are staples, but some of them actually surprise you when you sit down and look at the knowledge, or the information from the year, and be like, man, I caught a lot of fish doing that, and that's something that I don't typically thought or think that I throw a lot of.
That's cool, man. That's a really cool thing. This is different, but it's the same. It's like sometimes I'll go back and I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe I'm trying to get some B-roll for a video, and I'll go back in my archives and I'll pull up a video that was 3 years old, and I'm throwing a stupid tube a whole lot more back then than I am now, or whatever bait it is. And I almost kind of forgot about it because I've rotated through, newer baits, and it's kind of a self-reflection thing. It's you forget, man, that was on the deck of my boat like all the time 3 years ago, and now I don't even know if I have it in the boat. So
yep,
you go
I do
back.
the same thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that the boat official actually documented the baits as well as obviously.
Yep. Well, it's like a category. It'll say
Mhm.
wacky Nico rig, or drop shot, or crankbait, and kind of a depth range of a crankbait or chatterbait. Jig head minnow. It kind of a category, not like the specific bait by any means, but it's pretty cool to to track that information. And I use it a lot for myself, like tracking my own catches. Like I said, I like to go and look back at because you think you remember everything, but then you go back and look and like, oh, let me look at stage one from this year, and like, oh man, I caught him on a trap, a jerk bait, a chatterbait. Like I caught him on all these different baits, when in your mind you're like, man, I only caught him on a chatterbait. So it's just cool to have all that information available.
Yeah. Somebody on here was asking me if this Sunline hoodie was 100% cotton. I don't know. I think it's a 50-50 blend, but I always cut the tags off the back of my hoodies because they mess with my neck all the time.
Yeah, me too.
But it seems like it was a 50-50 blend. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I've watched it several times and it really hasn't shrunk up. So that leads me to believe that it's not just like straight up cotton.
Yeah.
Super comfortable. Well, cool. Let's wrap this up, man. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate you hanging out with us, Matt. It's good to,
of course,
it's always good to have a good conversation. Safe travels and good luck next year on the BPT and whatever else you find yourself fishing. Are you just doing the BPT, or are you going to jump in some like Toyotas or?
No, so I've got a busy year. I'm in all the pro circuit as well. So I'm all in on Bass Pro Tour and the pro circuit as well. So we got a busy season lined up, and yeah, I'm excited about it. It's honestly, I've kind of missed fishing the pro circuit level the last few years, but ever since I qualified for the Bass Pro Tour, I just didn't feel right fishing the entire season when I would take away a qualifying spot from one of the up and coming anglers that are going to qualify. And this year they finally changed that rule. That was something that I pushed for the last few years, and whether they listened to me or it just finally came up and it happened, but I have been pushing for them to change that rule, that they will go down the list if a already qualified Bass Pro Tour angler finishes inside the top 5. So now I feel like I can fish that. You had the situation with Drew a couple years ago.
Yep.
Where he backed out of the last tournament because he didn't want to take a spot away from someone qualifying, and I just didn't want to be put into a situation like that. So, that having that rule changed really kind of got me thinking about fishing more. And I love fishing tournaments. Like I'm a professional tournament angler. If I'm not fishing a tournament, like I'm probably spending money somewhere. I'm not making money, that's for sure. So if I can fish a tournament, I have a better chance of making money. So I need to be fishing more tournaments. And yeah, I'm excited about the busy year for sure.
Yeah, one thing I always applaud Major League Fishing on. Some people don't like it. They're not scared to change it up. they seem like they listen to the fans and to the anglers, and if something makes sense, they're not scared to mix it up. You know, a lot of
Yep.
Sometimes it's not the most popular thing to do because we all want to know what the playing field is, and all the changes can be confusing and mess with your head. But I do applaud them for at least trying to make it better for the anglers and the viewers and stuff. And that rule right there that you just said, that was a huge one for me, because back with Drew 2 years ago, and I can't remember, I thought it might have affected him the year before somehow. I can't remember that story, but it seems like I know there's been times where a guy would have got in, but someone that was already qualified in the invitationals or the pro circuit or whatever it is, you know, they don't go down a spot. It's the top, whatever, that's who gets in. If they're already qualified, then sorry, the guy that's sitting right outside, the bubble boy, he's just out of luck. But that was a great idea for them to change that.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, folks. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We got a guest next Tuesday. I'll kind of put that on the socials and get that rolling. Get your Christmas shopping done. I just realized we only got like 10 or 11 days. And
yeah, you were texting me last night about stocking stuffers. I'm like, bud, you better get that on the way.
I know. Maybe I was just doing that for my own good, just to remind myself. But I can't remember what I was watching today, but they said there's only like 10 or 11 days left for Christmas or whatever it is. I'm like, what? 9. Yeah, I know, it's getting worse too. So I got to get on it. It's happening quick.
Yeah, I guess it's time I better start Christmas shopping, right?
Yeah, we're in the same boat.
Hey, I'm just waiting on the mailman right now.
Yeah, me too.
Checks in the mail. All right, folks, we're done.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see you.
All right, man. See y'all later.